Hello and welcome to the Whitelist gaming channel. My name is Dentay, and with this video we will be starting a series going over the Division's companion novel, New York Collapse. For those who are not aware, the novel New York Collapse is a novel that expands on the story within the Division that came out the same day as the game. Pages of it can be found in the game in the form of survival guide collectibles. When reading the book, it is important to keep in mind that it is written as if it were to exist in the Division universe, and is set up to tell two different stories. The first is by the fictional author of the book, Warren Merchant, and the second is the owner of the book, April Kelleher. When first looking at the book, it looks old and beat up. It is filled with information on how one would survive if a disaster were to hit New York City. The author specifically points out that a weaponized virus would be one of the greatest threats to New York. Within the pages, there are many hidden puzzles and messages that suggest the author knew about the impending doom. In this video, we will not be focusing on this story. Instead, we will be focusing on the story within the margins of the pages, the story of April Kelleher. In the book, on almost every page, there are diary-like entries from the book's owner, April. These entries give us insight on what life was like after the green poison outbreak had begun on the island. Throughout the guide, April uses several different colors of ink to write down her journal entries. Each color represents a different point in time for April. This is important to keep in mind because some pages have several different colors of ink on them. Sometimes this is to write down the answer to a question that she had in the past, and sometimes it was simply because she had ran out of room to write elsewhere in the book. Luckily for us, April wrote on one of the first pages of the journal what colors go with what dates. These colors and dates associated with them are as follows. She uses black ink from December 3rd to December 11th, blue ink from December 12th to the 22nd, orange only on the 23rd, red from December 24th to the 30th, and she uses pencil between December 31st and January 6th, and she makes her last journal entry on January 7th with brown ink. To begin part 1 of this series, we will be looking at her first entries from December 3rd to December 11th. April uses her first set of entries to tell us about her recent late husband and how he died. Prior to the outbreak of the virus, April lived in Brooklyn with her husband William Kelleher, who goes by the name Bill. April informs us that Bill was the one who gave her the survival guide for a birthday present, supposedly as a joke, but as we dive further into her story, more is revealed behind the gift. Bill worked as a biochemist for the company in Manhattan called SBGX, or Sequent Biotech Group. On the day Manhattan was put under quarantine, April happened to be on her way to visit her husband at SBGX. As Bill was coming out of his office with several of his coworkers, two vehicles pulled up and men in military fatigues began to open fire on them. April was horrified by what she had just witnessed. After the shooting, the crime scene was taped off and a coroner's van took the bodies away. When April ended up calling the police to get answers about her husband's death, the detective Nina DiGiovanni informed her that there had been no report made of any homicides or firearm incidents at the location. By this time, Manhattan's quarantine was in full effect and April was trapped on the island. Angry, scared, confused, and alone, April went to stay with her friend Eva, who lived on the island. At this point, April only had a handful of possessions on her. According to her, the only things she had were a keyring with 4 keys, 6 barcode fobs, a rubber duck, a bottle opener, a button LED light, some gum, sunglasses, nail clippers, tweezers, an extra pair of socks, $1,500 she was able to withdraw before the ATM crashed, a basic makeup touch-up kit, a couple of tampons, a couple of pads, and a collection of random coins, bobby pins, crumpled receipts, etc. at the bottom of the purse and this book. Not exactly ideal for surviving during an epidemic. While out on December 6th, April comes across some immigrants who begin to suspect the new disease is actually smallpox, but this is not yet confirmed. During this time, power is starting to be lost throughout the city, and there is an air of panic in the streets. Not much looting had occurred yet, although there was a lot of panic buying and riots were starting to occur near vaccination distribution points such as Hudson Yards. The next day, April experiences a major setback. Her friend Eva starts spiking a fever and coughing until she chokes. Fortunately, they still had power, so April is able to make some ice to try and keep Eva cool. Despite the instructions from Sarah to remain inside and the promise that vaccine teams were heading their way to distribute a possible vaccine, no help came for Eva or the city. On December 8th, Eva developed blisters all over her body, and the Disease Control Department, or DCD, has now sequenced the virus and confirms it is a variant of smallpox. At this point, April herself begins to guess that due to the increased infection rates of the virus, it is actually a terrorist attack and suspects money might have been involved to spread it. Unfortunately, on December 9th, Eva died from the virus. April made attempts to contact her family, but by this time the power was out and her cell phone had not been working for the past 3 days. To take care of Eva's body, April wrapped it up in a sheet and left it in her bed. Despite Eva's death, April continued to stay at her apartment. Conspiracy theories started to go around that Sarah isn't using vaccines or is using them outside of Manhattan. With the help of a neighbor, April carried Eva's body out to the street and duct taped her driver's license to her body. Rumor was Sarah was picking up the bodies with refrigerator trucks and storing them at Hudson Yards on refrigerator trains. On December 11th, while out in the city, April observed police and National Guard to be setting up barriers and blaring warning signs to stay out of an area that no one was permitted to exit. While this was going on, a riot had broken out about vaccinations. She is soon caught up in it and hid in a restaurant basement. After the riot, she speaks with someone in a Sarah shirt who says there is a big shelter and supply distribution point at Madison Square Garden. She becomes suspicious, however, because she thought Sarah avoided big open places due to the difficulty of controlling large crowds. As we all know, this was where the rioters were held up in during the first mission of the division. This has been the first part of a series of videos the Whitelist will be making to cover all the details that can be found within the pages of the book New York Collapse. Our next video will be covering more of April's story as New York collapses even further into chaos. If you want to know more, subscribe to our channel to see the latest content when it's posted. My name is Dentay, and thank you for watching.